right, all mic'd up. Hi everyone, I'm José de Castro from Cisco. I'll introduce myself a little bit later, but man, this is, what a great conference. I go to a lot of conferences, attending and also doing some speaking, but just the energy in the hallways here and just seeing everyone just eager to learn and just eager to get started is, it's really, really exhilarating. Also, what an amazing time just to be alive. Isn't that, just a round of applause if you just wake up sometimes in the morning and just can't believe the world that we live in today. You know, some people who know me pretty well, they know that, and you could probably tell this from my hairdo as well, that I feel like I should have been born maybe 20 years earlier. Like sometimes I feel closer and more connected to, the 60s and the 70s, just hearing the stories and just this great energy and just the love and all of that. But as I've gotten older, and history has kind of unfolded and I've developed my career and become an entrepreneur, I can't imagine a better time to be alive than right now, just right this very moment. It's such an exciting time to be in technology, to just be present in the moment. Obviously, there are a lot of things not to like, but just to give you a couple examples, I'm actually I'm a new dad, just from a couple years ago. That's my son, Miles. Yeah, it feels like it was just a couple months ago, but he's 2 now. And about a year ago, he got sick, really sick for the first time. And actually, my wife got sick as well. I woke up. I had a bunch of meetings lined up in the office, and I didn't know what I was going to do. You hear stories from your parents, these horror stories about like, oh, I remember when you were sick, and I missed work for 3 days and all of that. My parents love telling me those stories because, of course, it makes me, a little more grounded as a parent and as an adult. But I realized when I pick up my phone and I'm about to call my boss telling him I can't go into the office that at the time, it's 2016. Everything I need is right here in my pocket. So within 6 minutes, literally 6 minutes, I was able to order his medicine and have it delivered to the house. Of course, I bought myself some sushi while I was at it because I knew I was going to get hungry a little later. And then I moved all of my in-person meetings that I was going to have in the office, I moved them online onto WebEx and Cisco Spark, which is our collaboration tool. And I did this all from my phone in less than 10 minutes. 3 apps, 6 minutes, completely transformed my day. What could have been a terrible day, massive loss in productivity, and disappointing a lot of people in my personal life and in my job, I was able to avoid all of that because of just the magic of technology, because mobility and apps have completely changed our world. So that's pretty amazing. Also, just think about it. Just 10 years ago, the iPhone didn't exist. If you could think about that, we didn't live in a world of apps, and that was only 10 years ago. 6 years after that, of course, massive transformations in technology, obviously building on top of Amazon Web Services and kind of the apps revolution. We had a whole new revolution start all around hardware. Hardware all of a sudden was sexy again, and you had a generation of programmers who were stuck in software now building hardware projects. And of course, 3D printing and advancements in those types of technologies have made it possible for people like yourselves, innovators like us, to dream about something and be able to make it. And that is tremendous. But really, the purpose of this talk is not just to celebrate technology, but also to talk about the pace at which innovation is changing. And if you look, it took 6 years pretty much between the introduction of the iPhone and some other major breakthroughs. Only 3 years after that, we've seen a massive acceleration in basic research and in technology and entrepreneurship and in the disruption that small companies can have on massive, massive industries. You've seen the rise of Slack and the chatbot revolution really just in the last 18 to 24 months. AR, VR in a major way. And of course, all of the major IT players now have their footing in cognitive services, AI, machine learning. Man, what an exciting time to be alive. But there's actually, under the surface, a much broader change that is happening that if we don't stop to pay attention, we may miss out on some pretty massive opportunities. And this change, this transformation that's happening, it comes by several names. My favorite name for it is the Fourth Industrial Revolution. It's a term that was coined by a professor of economics, and he's also the founder of the Economic World Forum, and his name is Klaus Schwab. He also published a book by the same name. I'll show you the cover at the end of my talk. But the concept behind the Fourth Industrial Revolution is pretty simple, is that there have been three very well-recognized transformations in industry. The first one was brought on by the steam engine and the ability to begin producing goods and transporting goods using locomotion and trains. And that happened around in the 1700s. About 100 years later, we saw another huge transformation brought on by electricity. And of course, now with electricity and locomotion, we can now produce goods at mass scale and transport them over long distances. And that completely transformed how companies can get their goods out into the market and really began what we know today as globalization. About 100 years after that, we were at the very beginning of what's now referred to as the digital transformation, where, of course, we all live in, being engineers yourselves or students. We still kind of associate ourselves as being part of this third revolution. But the reality is that just a few years ago, we entered into a fourth and very distinct revolution where we started to see the fusing together of the digital, the physical, and the biological world. And I'm sure you've heard, the Internet of Things. That's the physical world interacting with the digital world. Now, at a very fast pace, we're starting to see the blending together of biology with the physical, with the digital. And it's not only happening in a completely holistic and intertwined way, but it's happening at an exponential rate. And I'm not saying that just to be hyperbolic and just to use a big word. Literally, we are at the beginning of an exponential curve in advancement in technology. Technology today is changing at a rate that it has not changed in the entire course of human history. And that is very profound. And if we all can accept that and use it for good, well, you can be as successful as you want to be, and of course, you can have a massive impact on the world as well. Some of the key drivers driving the Fourth Industrial Revolution, obviously massive advancements in machine learning, robotics, 3D printing. I mean, you've heard all of these before, but it's the coming together of all of these things that has made it as profound as it has. That said, it really isn't only about technology. The other great thing about this massive advancement that we're seeing is that also for the first time in history, we're seeing a global shortage of skills in engineering. There are more jobs than there are engineers, and that has brought about a level of diversity that we haven't seen in quite a long time, maybe even in the entire course of human history as well. Now, looking out into the audience here, fairly diverse, mostly white dudes, but globally, the statistics are actually very encouraging. We're seeing more women in technology. We're seeing a much more diverse set culturally and really around the world. And to me, it's a very encouraging sign to see that. Now, we have a lot more work to do. Cisco has some great programs. I'll put them up on the screen here so that we can all help build a more diverse engineering culture. But one thing that you can't see with your naked eye is something, I think, a little more profound, and that's a growing inequality. And of course, we've probably heard this term before, and it can mean a lot of things. And what I mean when I use the term is, as this exponential curve that I was talking about accelerates, we will start to see an erosion. And I think it's very well depicted in this graph right here, an erosion of what, at least in the US, we consider to be kind of the middle class. And as the middle class begins to erode, what we will see is a very huge gap between low skill and low paying jobs, and high skill and high paying jobs. And what this graph goes to show and this is actually pretty scary if you think about it, is in the next 20 years, 47% of US jobs will go away. They will fall to computers, automation, AI. Now, obviously, I'm not standing in front of you as an entrepreneur and as a technologist myself to tell you that technology and advancements and innovation are in any way wrong or in any way immoral. But the one thing that I've come to realize, as an entrepreneur, having sold my company to Cisco and now as an executive at Cisco, is that as innovators, we have today more than ever a moral imperative to just be mindful. As you're out there doing your startup, working at a company, creating technology, thinking about the next big thing, just stop for a moment and think, what impact is this going to have? Not just on my own success and on my users, which is very, very important, right? We want to create great software that users love to use. But what effect is it going to have on someone else's job or in an industry as a whole? And I'm going to, hopefully, in the few minutes that I have left, kind of teach you some techniques that you can apply while designing software that not only will make you feel better about being mindful and building software that is holistic and kind of in the greater good, but also it's good business. So I'll get into that in just a second as well. So just a little bit about myself. I mentioned this just a second ago. In 2009, I founded a startup called Tropo. And so I come from the world of collaboration technology. I've spent over the last 10 years thinking about how to democratize voice, video, and messaging and put it into the hands of as many people as possible. So Tropo was a developer platform where a developer can embed voice, video, and messaging into their own apps. And we were pretty successful. So a couple of years ago, in 2015, we had a successful exit to Cisco. And so now I look after the developer program for Cisco Spark. So that's kind of our next generation voice, video, and messaging platform. Obviously, there's a bunch of great apps that you can download that make it really easy to stay in touch with your team. But it's also a platform as well. And so I spend most of my time thinking about how to unlock the potential of human collaboration for the rest of the world. And I think it's that the human part of that actually makes me feel pretty good, because in a world where 20 years from now, 40% of U.S. jobs are going to basically erode into automation and robotics and AI, anything that we can do to anchor humans as kind of as an integral part of the process and of doing business and delivering value for shareholders is a pretty good thing. So I feel pretty good about myself when I go to bed, knowing that, like, hey, I'm helping humans be productive. And that's a pretty nice feeling. Now, you won't see this or read this in any of the official Cisco marketing literature, but when my mom or my sister asks, "What do you do? Like, what is your job?" And I can of course explain to them that I build platforms and APIs and developers and blah blah. But really, the simplest way, and probably I think the best way that I've found to describe what I do is I build software that helps people all around the world share knowledge and make better decisions. And the reason I like that in particular is because these two things are uniquely human. And as humans, well, at least for now, at least until we have like an AI that's a CEO, which is probably coming sooner than we probably think, it is uniquely human to want to reason about information, share it with others, educate, and make educated decisions. So I think that's a tremendous thing for us to focus on. Now, for those of you who have kind of been maybe living under a rock and haven't heard about chatbots, it's a pretty huge thing. And a lot of companies are starting to think about how to leverage AI, artificial intelligence, and machine learning into their everyday business workflows. And what's interesting about chatbots is that they get embedded into a human conversation. So now you have a bunch of humans collaborating, and now there's this bot in the mix. And of course, what we want as humans is for the bots not to take over entirely. And so I have a lot of conversations with my customers and my partners at Cisco to kind of help educate them on, hey, you're interested in building chatbots? Well, here's a strategy. And the best strategy that we've been able to come up with is rather than build a bot, and this goes to all of you who may be working on a startup or even a chatbot, build bots that instead of replacing a human, they actually give humans superpowers. And so, we often hear about chatbots as being personal assistants. I don't like that term. I'd rather build bots that extend human ability. So rather than an assistant who's kind of there, kind of waiting to kind of help me in my everyday tasks, the best bots that we found, the most successful ones, actually are almost like a third arm, if you kind of think of it, and just kind of help you do more and help you be more productive. And we've got some great blog posts on our site that you can read about for some practical tips on how to actually do that. So anyways, I'm out of time now, but just wrapping up, diversity, again, is improving worldwide. We're not there yet. Cisco has a great program that we just launched called multiplydiversity.com, where you can pledge as an individual to sponsor one other person that is either a minority, someone of a different gender or of a different race, and basically be their advocate in the world and help them achieve everything that they can achieve. So you can go on this website, you can take the pledge. I've done it myself. Most of my team has as well. Also, be mindful of the skills gap that's coming, and start working that style of thinking, that level of software design, have that influence your software design, and I think you'll be better for it and your users will love you for it. And of course, give your users superpowers instead of replacing them. This is the book that really inspired this talk. I recommend that you all search it out and get a copy. It's called The Fourth Industrial Revolution by Klaus Schwab. Awesome. Also, if you're active on Twitter, and you have some ideas to share on this topic, make sure to use the hashtag 4IR. There's a great community out there discussing these topics. Also, we have the Code Lab from Cisco. Go visit that. We have some great prizes. And that's it. My name is José de Castro. You can follow me on Twitter, and that's our Spark thing as well. Yep. Thank you.